All right, welcome. It's the top of the hour. My name is Sherry Oswald and I'm with PowerUp Learning. And today we're presenting 10 Power Bytes, maximize your time and productivity in teams with our fabulous facilitator extraordinaire, Miss Leanne McManus, my partner in crime and partner in business. She's my sister from another mister and we work well together for a reason. Leanne is going to take you into a little bit more of a deep dive of teams, give you some tips and tricks for how to work and be more productive in that. And I'll let her introduce herself in a minute, but I want to do some housekeeping real quick. So officially, some of you may have just joined. If you would, we're going to have you do a couple of things with the chat window. If you have real-time feedback, you like something, or you have an aha moment, we love for you to share those with us in the webinar chat. And you might direct that to all of the participants and panelists, and not just the panelists. That way everybody can share in your epiphanies. We like to share those with each other. We are very informal. If you've been to other webinars, we like to banter and joke, and hopefully you'll join in that with us as well. And if you have formal questions or something that you think everybody might benefit from, if you'll put that in the Q&A pod, and I will be monitoring those as we're going along to make sure that we get those addressed and present them to Leanne in context. Now we kind of bounce things back and forth. She may ask for my feedback, so we also like to interrupt each other sometimes too. It's like, ooh, I want to share this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start and launch a poll for you. Let us know where you're at with your experience with teams, so we kind of know where we're starting from. If you'll go ahead and respond to that poll. And once you're done with the poll, if you'll raise your hand, let's get used to the tools here. In the attendee window, you can raise your hand. That way we know, excuse me, that way we know that you are have a question. We may ask for your interaction in that way as well. Now, in the last session, we had some technical glitch. I was actually presenting, and the internet went down. So we will tag team. Hopefully that won't happen in this one. If you see either one of us disappear, just hang out. Well, hopefully we can get it started back up again. It shouldn't just die because one of us is gone, but hopefully that won't happen. All right, so I'm not seeing any responses in the poll yet. I'm wondering if my screen is frozen or maybe you guys can't see it.
I see the poll in my second screen, so hopefully you all should have seen the poll come up. Can you click the raise your hand if you do in fact see that? You don't see the poll, so maybe redo it again.
Let me start that one again and see if we can do this.
Thank you guys. Oh, wait, from another Microsoft person we work with, she's like, I hate it when women say guys. We need to start saying ladies or people. So I say guys a lot, but thank you for feedback. Okay, it's up, I think, right? Is everyone seeing it? We're just
there we go. Now we're starting to see some responses. Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you all. Thank you, people.
You don't realize you say it, right?
I know. So you start catching yourself, like the literally. Every time I say literally now, I cringe because everybody overuses the word.
Literally.
All right, looks like the majority of people are less than a month. They're pretty brand new to the experience, so we can make sure that we keep that in mind as we move forward.
That's why we're calling everybody work from home warriors, because this is, you know, that Microsoft and Google and all those companies are going to come out with some term for COVID, that it'll be our COVID fans, or they'll come up with some lingo for it, but everybody has to learn how to be a warrior right now, so we need to band together.
All right, looks like we've got most of the responses in. Everybody's fairly new. We've got less than a month, 1 to 6 months, nobody 6 months or a year or more, and everybody feels like they're a novice, so just tuck that away for future. And I'll go ahead and let Leanne introduce herself and step out of the way. Just let you know I'm manning the chat and I'm manning the Q&A, so just let us know if you need anything, and looking forward to having you guys today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. So Sherry, if you don't mind, perfect. She ended the poll. Welcome everybody. So again, I see myself over here, but I'm looking at you here. I am Leanne McManus, and I like to have my camera on at the beginning just so you can see who's talking behind the screen, right? So I'm going to go through my introductions. I'll shut it off and then we'll kick into this. Sherry already explained that we like to do these very interactively, and right now it's mostly through chat from you. but we've had great interaction in our other sessions. So Q&A, anything you have that's like, wait, I didn't understand that, or here's a challenge our business has. And then the chat could be, I love that feature, or I didn't know that. Share things with the group. It's kind of a way of sharing your wows. So we can have conversation around that. And then Sherry's going to point it out to me if there's something big to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my slide here. We'll just have a couple slides if I can get my mouse to work with me, which it's being ornery, so okay. All right, so a little bit about us and what we're gonna do. We are to come together as PowerUp Learning, and we're gonna focus on transforming the way that you work with your teams using Microsoft Teams. That's more of a focus of what we're doing today. So we're gonna cover, a lot of things in Teams and really get started in Office 365 with the apps so that there's some clarity there. And then when we get into Teams, I have a general agenda of things that I'm going to show you in a minute of what we're going to go through, but we can be very organic with it and how we go through and kind of experience these things, especially since most of you are saying that you're pretty new to this whole environment. You're probably going to see things you had no idea you could do, and there's a lot more than what we have time to cover. So if you have a question, there is no question that is beyond asking. You're probably in a group where people would love to have your question asked. So a little bit about me, high level. My area of expertise and my passion comes from the training and facilitation world and the change management perspective with a boundary around agile, an agile mindset and an agile way of working. So it all works together well. And in fact, that's one of the reasons that I love using Office 365 and Teams, because I think it promotes an agile mindset. So we don't have a lot of time to cover that, but just kind of how you work and how you have visibility into other people's work. It's a great tool for that. A little bit about ways to reach out with me. Sherry and I have PowerUp Learning together. I also have IQ Solutions. So that's what all of my social media is tied to, is my LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook are all tied with my IQ Solutions account. Feel free to reach me. The Twitter's @IQ. And it's IKUW, so easy to find, and we're both social everywhere, so you should not have a problem reaching out to us. So a little bit about us. So we are experts, and we're kind of grounded around everything in the workplace right now, this modern workplace, and really focusing on the digital transformation, right? You all being somebody who's been thrown into working from home and having to figure out what tools to use to still get your job done, have visibility with the people you're working with, all of that stuff is part of what we're talking about with this modern workplace. So we focus on it with Microsoft, some other products as well, but really Microsoft is our go-to. So we're both facilitators. I'm an agile facilitator, a change management facilitator. We do Microsoft facilitation, and we're trainers. So they're different sort of things, but we cover all gamuts of that. Practitioners, so we eat our own dog food. What we live and breathe and have passion for is what we utilize, and we keep honing in on our skills and improving that every day. And we're authors as well. Different modes, a lot of on-demand videos. So Sherry's got some LinkedIn learning videos. We're on Pluralsight through another company called Clip Training. I've done other videos for other companies. We've authored some education curriculum and books for Microsoft. So a lot of different authoring there just to kind of give breadth to our expertise. We are change agents. I think I've kind of explained that, but change agents right now, all of you are in the face of what we're talking about. It's really about adoption, and part of the change is, if you've heard of ADKAR, and I know some people on the line have heard of ProSci a little bit and have heard of ADKAR, this model, but as an individual, where are you in alignment with being ready or even knowing about something that's changing? Do you even have awareness of it? Do you have the desire to change? Those sort of things that then float up into a bigger organizational level. So how as an organization do we get people across the line? So that's what we're talking about when we say change agents, and Agile also comes into play there. As I mentioned, we're instructors. We've been instructors I have been instructing forever. I've been an MCT for 12 years. And then of course we're consultants, and that's part of tie in with the practitioners, but we work a lot on maybe SharePoint, custom SharePoint customizations that people need, or working with teams to help them understand how to build something out. So just a little bit about us. If you have a need for something like that, feel free to keep us in mind. We surely would appreciate it. So what we're going to focus on today are some of these are the 10 Power Bytes that I like to call them. How we get there may be different than how we got there yesterday, but in general, we're going to cover the different apps that are available in Office 365. And if you're new to Office 365, you may have clicked on the waffle and felt overwhelmed. So we're going to kind of look at that, and I'm going to try and help you feel better about, you don't have to know it all. What you want to know is comfortable in how to find something. And then if you're looking for something, go investigate and you'll be able to bring it in. You'll be able to use it in the app or bring it into Teams. So I want you to feel comfortable about what the apps are out there. And then we're going to, oops, that's in the wrong order. Apologize and move these. The difference between Teams, channels, and tabs. So then we're really going to focus inside Teams and try and identify for you to have a solid understanding of the difference between those three areas inside the Teams application. Then a channel is something underneath the team that we're going to talk about, kind of best ways to think about how you might set up a team. And so we commonly say it depends on what you're doing. Is this I'm a manager and these are my direct reports, or is this a project, or is this work streams we're trying to do with cross-pollination across the organization? So it depends on what it is, but we'll have that discussion in there to give you a better understanding. We're also going to talk about ways to integrate. Where we started on the first point, we're going to see how we can integrate different apps into our teams to really leverage the power of what those apps can do. And then we're going to talk, really kind of give you ideas on how you can have calendars shared within Teams, or at least within the Office 365 group that's built together. So we'll discuss that as well. And then my probably favorite area is, how do we manage, have visibility, transparency, and leverage, and kind of be able to report all up on what's going on with the project. And we need to have tasks that we all need to see. Well, I'm going to focus on using Planner for this so you get a better understanding. And if you don't know what Planner is, I think after this session, it's going to be one of those apps that you're going to want to go investigate. And then we're going to talk, here's like kind of a best practice thing, and we're going to talk about some naming convention ideas, particularly tied around maybe when you're naming your team and your channels, ways to think about that, and also even naming your files and how people might use those and good practices there. And then some of my favorite things is about the communication and how you actually interact with each other using Teams. And some of this is true also in Outlook, but using app mentions in different ways. And my new feature, favorite feature, is called tags, or using tags inside a team and a channel. And then we're going to look at ways to distinguish between communications you might have and files that you might use between the Teams area in channels, and then there's a chat area in Teams. So Teams is an entire platform. When do we go to chat, and what's different about that versus when we're in a channel? What can we do? What's consistent and what's different about that? And the last piece is just kind of having some fun, and I'll show you some quick ways to dress up some of your communications you might have to build morale, or just have a good time, or make something look really structured and formal. I've got an announcement that's really important versus I've got attaboy praise I want to give you. There's some different things that you can do in there. Okay, so we like to show and promote other people in the Microsoft world, and Matt Wade is one of our favorites. And so feel free to go to jump to365.com. Matt Wade is an MVP, which just means he's a most valuable professional, I think it is, not player, with Microsoft. He creates all kinds of amazing infographics that help people understand what's happening and all the changing that's happening with Microsoft and Office 365 over the years. So this one in particular is a way to look at groups. That's actually where we're going to start out, and when I dive into the demo. So if you can look at that layer, the two layers that we've got here, particularly the bottom layer, a lot of what's here is all part of what's in a group. So if I create in this app, I should become a proud owner of a group that comes with. If you go and check this out, this will help you understand the fundamental underbelly of what happens with the team, or particularly with a group that gets converted to a team. So I'm gonna go into that platform and help you understand this in a better way, but this would be a great resource for you to check out. And one more resource that we're going to show here is Matt Wade also made this periodic table. You can go to jump to365.com and access this as well. This, as you can see by here, I think there may even be some things that aren't updated in our image of this, but this is constantly changing. But it really gives you the periodic layout of all the different apps and gives you an idea of which you should use when, because we realize it could be overwhelming. So let me go ahead now. I'm going to go straight into demo mode, and I'm going to shut my video off. So let me do that. And I'm going to switch my screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the environment from a person called Molly Clark and a person called Ty, and they happen to work together. So as we're kicking into this, I want to make sure that you guys are encouraged to ask questions. So write some comments in the chat again or ask questions, and Sherry will interrupt me. You can just say, hey, Leanne, like Ricola, but do hey, Leanne, and I'll pause and we can get the questions done. So I want you to be interactive as possible with this. Okay, so what we're going to do, everybody can see that I have Molly Clark here, and Molly's logged into Office 365. So here's a good way to kind of get a feel for the group right now. In your environment, you have a little raise the hand. If you agree with this or this is true for you, I want you to just click the raise a hand and we'll get a feel for this. How many of you on the call have seen or accessed this portal of Office 365? So what's that, Sherry? About half? A little bit more than half?
Yeah, it looks like 4 out of 7. So
Okay.
we have some brand newbies.
Very good. And we've got people watching, by the way, on Facebook Live as well, so they can't interact with this, and they can't raise their hand, and they can't see you raising your hand, but we have other people that are kind of watching. That is helpful to know because this is when you first log into Office 365, which I refer to as the portal or this is the Office 365 landing page. When you log in with your credentials, Molly is logged in here. We've got this fake company tenant name here, but she logs in. In your world, it would be logging into your organization with your organization's credentials. You'll likely have single sign-on, meaning you will see your branded company, that your sign-on is probably the same as your Windows sign-on. All of that happens, and you're taken to this landing page. If you are new to this is a place you should start and you should investigate. Because if you take a look even at what's standard here, and some of these you won't see likely unless you're in IT or have some rights for something, you won't see admin. That won't be a typical one that you would see. But you will see most of these unless your company shut these off. So, and if you're anybody who's been around computers and using Office over the years, most of these look familiar, right? Maybe not OneNote if you're newer to that stuff, but the Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those are all coming from Office. OneDrive for Business is your personal location in your organization to store, manage, and work on your own files. SharePoint, and many companies have had an on-premise SharePoint before going to the cloud, or maybe still, and you may be having SharePoint Online with Office 365. So depending on your organization, depending on your governance, depending on the industry you're in and regulations, that varies across the board. If you're a company who has completely went all into Office 365, this SharePoint is going to be your everything, and it's just called SharePoint Online in general when you're referencing it. But SharePoint in general can do everything. It just can do so many things. Most people think of it as just a document repository, right? Somewhere that you put your documents and people can see them and share them and work on them. That is true, but really this entire platform we're in is built on the backbone of SharePoint. OneDrive is a mini version, if you will, of a document library of SharePoint. So every person, if I have an organization with 1,000 employees and they all have an Office 365 account, oh, sorry, I'm clicking on Outlook. Every single one of those people, if they have the same license, will have OneDrive for Business. That is their own storage location. So this is Molly's OneDrive for Business, Molly's files she's working on, that she doesn't necessarily need everybody on their team site, their shared company or directory, or their department sites that they have. She doesn't necessarily need those files to be there. These would be in, this morning we had a gentleman who was talking about one of his clients. They have shared drives, and they're still using shared drive. So getting into the cloud now is a bit of a shift. And so they're not sure how to relate that. You could kind of think about the OneDrive being your personal folder in your shared drive, but the SharePoint being that shared location or an intranet site that you have where people share, like accounting puts all of their documents, okay? Teams is really what we're gonna spend our time looking at today. Teams doesn't actually house these things. Teams lets you leverage all the pieces of every one of these apps that we have available in Office 365. So it's sort of the thing that holds everything together. Okay, so there's a lot of apps. We're seeing just some general common apps when you first come in here. The main way to navigate in Office 365 at the very top left you'll see what everybody kind of calls the waffle now. When I hover it, it tells you you are in the app launcher. The technical term for it is app launcher. You can toggle it on and off. And you'll see that all those same apps that we just saw to the right are showing here. But of course, we have this all apps option. So when I do this in my organization, in our Contoso company we're in, we have a lot of apps enabled. In your company, when you expand this, you may not see all of these apps. You may see most of these apps. If your company has maybe taken a very slow deployment of this and release of these things, you may only see a few apps. You may only see OneDrive and a few of these Office apps. So you'll want to log into your organization, check those out, and then see, what the plan is in your company of when these are going to be released for you. But in general, once you have access to these and it's part of your license, you can come in and you can access any of these as a user in the company. Okay, so the thing that I like to point out, I'm going to go to a few of these really quick. I'm going to go to my OneDrive, and I want you to get a feel for when you're in the apps, or excuse me, when you're in the browser, how it works. Number one thing is that I'm Molly Clark. It's always going to authenticate. You can tell that I've been logged in as other users here. I'm going to click Molly Clark. Because I already authenticated, it didn't ask for my password. If it had been a period of time, it probably would prompt me for my password. We do get prompts along the way. This is Sherry's favorite thing to share, is that you should always read these. And I'm a quick clicker. A lot of times I don't read them. But it's just sort of telling you when something's changed. Here's where recent is. Anything recently that you've opened from Office 365, you can click here and it's going to show you. And then here is where your teamwork is at. So it's showing you designated areas. These are my files and these are shared libraries. So I'm going to close these. Now, what I want to point out is I am in, if you look at the top, we have the waffle and I'm in OneDrive. So I refer to this as the OneDrive landing page. So Molly Clark is in her own OneDrive. Now I'm going to bring up Ty. Let's see if you see Ty here. So Ty's environment, you'll know it's Ty because we see Ty's image in the upper right. Ty has the exact same landing page. If Ty goes to his OneDrive, it opens in a new browser window. And we come up, I don't know why OneDrive's not showing it. It's just being slow. There it is. So we have the waffle in the upper left. We see OneDrive, and you'll see his name is listed here. So if I just kind of move this one over to the side and I've got Molly behind. I've got two screens, so it's not gonna, normally I would do Windows left, Windows right, but it's gonna be a little harder. I just wanna give you a view where you can see. This is, oh, you can't see Ty's name there. Anyways, I wanted to show you by looking at this, you can always tell where you're at based on looking in the upper left. So they look identical and it just happens to be this environment has some of the same folders, but this is Ty's OneDrive and this is Molly's OneDrive. I'm going to maximize Molly. And when you're in OneDrive, you always want to reference the name here. Okay. Now, Sherry covered a lot of great OneDrive detail this morning. One of the things that she spent time going through was going through you're sharing your files or someone else has shared their files with you. I like to point this out in OneDrive just so you get a sense of the landing page and how you understand that OneDrive is an application all by itself, but that application and those files in that application can be used in lots of different ways. So you can use your OneDrive files in Outlook, you can use your OneDrive files in Teams, and your Office programs can be stored in your OneDrive. So if I go to shared, I see shared with me, meaning they actually are owned and belong to somebody else or shared by me. So if I go to shared with me, actually, before I do this, I'm going to create a new file and share it with Ty so we can see this. I'm going to create a new PowerPoint. And it's going to open up. Everything I'm doing is in the browser right now. So this is the cloud-based portion. I could just as easily be logged into PowerPoint as Molly and create this document and share it from my desktop version. Okay, so there's some really kind of cool looking options here. So click to add a tile. This is out in the woods. This one's cool too, Sherry. We're finding some new designs we're kind of liking today. So if I want to create this and now I want to share.
I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of the ripples and little mountain scene that was always there for like 20 years.
This is like the one you did this morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to, right here from the browser, you'll notice that the browser tells me exactly what I have open at any given time, which I appreciate. So I can look even just at the icon and see this is my landing page for Office 365. And of course, when you hover it, it tells you that. I can see this is my OneDrive and this is a presentation. It's not yet been named, so we're going to call it, what I call it, Out in the Woods or whatever, right? The hardest part of going live is typing correctly in front of people. Okay, so it's called Out in the Woods. It names the name. It names the browser here. Now, if I want to share it, this is one way to share it. If you've been using Microsoft for any period of time, you know there's many ways to share or to do the same functionality. I prefer to always come in and say I want to choose specific people, so I'm being very specific about who I'm sharing with. I'm going to allow editing, and I'm going to say with Ty. Ty, and if I wanted to help me, right, help me out with this, I need to get this done, I got a deadline. I send him a link. I get prompted that I sent him a link. Now, I can continue working. I'm going to go back to Ty's environment here. Oh, Ty just got an email. Y'all can see that he got an email to share Out in the Woods from Molly. Now, Ty is in his OneDrive. You know that he's in his own OneDrive because he sees his name here. These are his files. And you'll notice in his files, there is no Out in the Woods. So if Ty goes to shared, he's going to go shared with you. Here's the file less than a minute ago that Molly shared. Okay, so I want to show you, I'm going to go into the file as Ty. And Sherry covered all of this awesome co-authoring and working together, which is definitely something you'll want to check out. Molly's in the file, Ty's in the file. We can both be working on the slides together. What I want to show you is, as he's in the browser, you come to the left, you get breadcrumb trails. So at the top left is the waffle. We know what app or landing page we're in. Whose location is this and where is it at? So if I click on Documents as Ty, it's going to navigate me back to, it says Files, OneDrive. You'll notice there's only 3 files in here now. Now this is interesting too. This is a new activity thing here, Sherry. Look at that. I don't remember seeing this before. So we see some activity like she renamed. It's keeping sort of track of some changes that happened that's now giving us some activity information. But the bigger thing to pay attention to is there's only 3 files showing. We know that he had more than 3 files. Go ahead, Sherry.
You know, we have all these little Easter eggs that pop up sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
Like, that's brand new to me too. I like that. So.
This actually, somebody asked a question yesterday about how do you know changes that were made? And this looks like an attempt to kind of make it more visible. This is giving me a hint that Molly just did something to this file. So that's interesting. So I want to bring this home and show you why I'm trying to get you oriented with this. It's a few things. Number one, you can see where you're at and what's happening. I'm in files. What it doesn't tell me up here is whose files. I do know it's OneDrive and files where I can tell this one is the shared with you, okay? If I come down here and I look at the top left, I don't see Ty's name. As Ty, he sees Molly Clark. And these are Molly Clark's files that have been shared directly with Ty.
Molly Clark's name is now up under the waffle now. They moved it.
It's what?
Up left under the waffle says Molly Clark.
Right, yes.
Yeah, they moved it.
Oh, yeah, it used to be high. Well, no, I clicked inside it, I think.
Okay.
So, because yesterday it was going foul on us a little bit, but what I'm general for everybody, if you're new to this, I'm trying to get you oriented because when you're in these, it can get confusing, like whose one, what, I thought it was my OneDrive. Well, you are in your OneDrive, but did you go to shared? And now you're accessing a file that somebody else gave to you. And if you go to that, you're actually in Molly's OneDrive, not your OneDrive anymore. Okay, so any questions on that? Anything coming in on that, or is that clear? I'll pause.
Go ahead and put your aha moments or your questions in the chat, or if you want to, you can put it in the question and answer pod. All right.
Clear, good. I'm seeing excellent. So that's the first one I want to show. I just remembered there was a little nugget that I shared yesterday's session that I hadn't shared with you guys. The sharing, I think, is the most powerful thing now with browsers. And I have to be completely transparent and say I was only using Chrome before, and now I'm using the new Edge, or it's called Chromium. And it's like the blue wave. It kind of looks like a big wave now. either of those browsers has this new feature. If you can see that I'm hovering Thai up above, it says work to. You can create different profiles in that browser. So here's actually my PowerUp Learning. This is my actual profile I'm using. Here's Molly's profile. Here's another one I have, and here's Ty. So in my browser, I can keep these accounts and the credentials tied to those accounts completely separate. Now, if you work in a company and you only have one Office 365 account, but actually at home right now, this could be useful to you. You have your personal stuff you're doing and you have your work stuff you're doing. You may want to create two different profiles for yourself. So all you have to do is be either in Chrome or go to Chromium or the new Edge, come down and say add a profile. You basically tell it who you want it to be. If it's an Office 365 account, you can actually log in with the email address and it creates these. So that's how I don't have an issue of getting prompted for different passwords for a different user when I'm in the browser. So that's a tidbit that I didn't have in my top 10 bytes, but I think it's critical if you find that you're getting frustrated working from home. Okay, so I'm going to close some of these because here's the other thing that happens is it gets a little bit loud and crazy in here. I'm going to close this one. And I am Ty, and I'm back at my landing page. So we can see actually Ty's got an additional app here because I had closed the Power BI a minute ago for something I'm going to show you guys later. As you go to the waffle and you begin opening new applications, you'll see those load here on your landing page. So if we scroll down, we can come in and we could Power Automate is an amazing new app. We don't have time to cover it today, but it's a way for you to automate some of the things that you're doing. There's some great ones you should go and investigate. For the purposes of this, I'm going to open up Teams because that's really kind of where we want to spend most of our time today. And now this is the only one. Did you notice, Sherry, that one actually navigated over my Office 365. Most of them open a new tab when you're out here. So sometimes they work slightly different. It's telling me we recommend downloading the Teams desktop. This is something I'm going to point out since it's here. You know, when we looked at the landing page, we saw Outlook and we saw Word and we saw Excel and we saw all those apps that we're familiar with. You probably are comfortable and used to seeing that you have a desktop client that you use. Like I open up Outlook on my computer, the program, and I use it. I open up Excel and I can use it on my computer. Teams also has a desktop app. Not all apps that are out in the waffle have a desktop app. Almost all of them have an app for your mobile device. I don't know, Sherry, if it's pretty good parity, I think. I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that doesn't have a mobile access right now. But like Planner is an example of one we're going to look at. It does not have a desktop app. It's all web-based, or you can use it in a mobile app. Okay. So a hint on this is we find that people that are new in particular to using Office 365 and Teams, they don't understand when they're in the Teams, the desktop client, or they're in the browser. And it seems obvious until you're working and you have all these things open, and then it gets a little confusing. So if you're getting a prompt like this, it says, we recommend that you download the Teams desktop app. That's a first hint that you're in the browser, okay? Other hints, obviously, is you see the address bar. And you're gonna see your navigation at the top here, and the fact that you see a browser window. The other major thing to tell you that you know that you are not in the desktop version is you'll see the waffle. So when we get to the Teams desktop, you'll notice the waffle's gone. We don't have any of this top section. We'll just see the purple going around, okay? So I'm gonna navigate back here to show you, even though it took me in that one tab and navigated me to Teams, I can always go back to my landing page by clicking on that Office 365 link there in the waffle. And you'll be able to tell because when you hover it, it's linkable. You can tell that you get the finger where you can click and proceed, okay? So that, as far as navigating, for those of you that are newer to this, hopefully that helps you get a solid understanding. We can explore all apps here too, but we don't have a lot of time. I would encourage you to go in and at least get comfortable with the Office 365 like landing page and how to navigate the waffle. So everything, you remember how we went into OneDrive and we saw that it has its own landing page. If I go into Teams, Teams has its own area. If I open up Planner, here's another raised hand thing. Has anybody heard or used Planner in any way? Raise your hand real quick and let us get a sense of that. Do we have just one?
Looks like just one, Dimitri.
Oh, very good,
And
Dimitri.
Dimitri joined us yesterday, so you might have inspired him yesterday. We'll see.
Oh, very good.
Great.
So, Dimitri, I'd love to say, hey, tell us all about it, right? But you've used Planner. Oh, Serena's used Planner.
Okay,
Yay.
good.
Serena, I remember you, girlfriend. So Planner high level, it, besides being like my favorite app, is a way to visualize your work or your tasks on something you need to get done. So before I close this, because I'm a closer, I like having a lot of real estate. At the top, the very first time you come into it, it's going to promote for you, you should get the app, the mobile app of this, and that's where that would take us. I'm going to close it just so I can move this up. But now if you look in the upper left, I'm in the waffle, right next door, I've got Planner, and I know it's kind of dark green on the dark gray, but Planner, this is the Planner landing page for this app, okay? So I'm in the Planner Hub, which is the way that you can kind of build your own little dashboard, if you will, right? So I can just click on some plans that I've been in, and I can build my, this says nothing's happening in my leadership, but my champions one I can see. If I create something new, we can see that show up here as well. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this, but I want you to understand that Planner itself has its own landing page. I can see if there's other plans, and okay, well, there we go. I was like, we have more plans than this. So we've got some other plans in here. Let's see if we also say, I want to see the marketing team. Ooh, we're at 5 tasks that are late, right? Where this one, we've got 1 that's late. And that's all relative to whatever's going on. If I click inside that marketing team planner board, here's the first part. Remember on that slide that I talked about with, and Matt Wade's slide talking about groups, this is what I want to start to give you an understanding of. How those independent apps work by themselves amazingly. How those apps work together when they're built in a group and or a team, okay? So I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about, and we're gonna get a solid understanding of a group, and then we're gonna convert a group to a team. So this is an existing marketing team here. Now the use of the term team in the name doesn't necessarily mean that it is a team. So just be aware of that. You can always tell, but we're in Planner right here. So Planner, let me explain that and then we'll explain the rest of this with the group. A planner board is like a Kanban board. If you've heard that reference, it comes from lean manufacturing originally. They use it in software development. Kanban is just a way of visualizing your work in progress or work in process and what needs to get done. So these little columns, they call them buckets here, can be named anything. They can be organized in whatever way you want them to go, left to right. And every little bucket, so we're doing a press release, messaging and branding, and let's say feedback. We want to know how our clients liked our information. So I name this new bucket feedback. And if I scroll to the left, you'll see I've got these other tasks that are here. Maybe I want to move this reseller list to feedback. Maybe in the process of where we're at, somebody didn't update it, but it's actually in the feedback stage now. So these can be stages. These could be some formalized process you have. This could be people or function, whatever makes sense for how your work is going to get done and what you're working on, right? So, and inside here, every one of these, a little task, you can just say social media. We need to create a task. I don't know a lot about it yet. We just got out of a meeting and they said we need to have this social media thing by the 7th. And I know that Alan's going to be the one responsible for it, as is Alicia. And so I'm going to assign it. I don't have any other details yet. It can be as simple as that. Now it comes where we need to add some details. We can come in and every little one of these things can be customized. We have some labels that we can name. We only have urgent right now, but this could be maybe, what do you call that? What do you call that? We have a group, a focus group, right? We have a focus group that we're going to do. This is important for this thing. And so we want to know, how does it land with our audience? And so we're going to give it focus group. And we're going to say, this is actually pretty important. And it is started. And I need it to, maybe I want to have a list of, we need Facebook and I need LinkedIn. You get the idea? And I'm going to say, I want to show this on the card. So I'm showing you a couple customized things that you can do to make them all different. We could have attachments showing in there. There's really a lot of fabulous things you can do. Everybody that's in this planner board that's showing up here as a member can see, can access, can update, do everything. Everybody is equal right now because this marketing team has members of a team. Members of a team, I could add more members. You want to be careful about doing this because you want to realize that we're not just adding them as a member to a plan. Likely, we're probably giving a membership to a SharePoint site and lots of other things. Here's how we can tell. Planner itself has a board view, a chart view, which is like analytics that's tied in without you having to do anything fancy, and we also have a calendar view. But the ellipsis, the dot, 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 is the thing that we always want to pay attention to see what else is available for us. So if I click on this ellipsis, look above this little light line here. These are the other connections from that Matt Wade thing we were showing you, where when a group is made, there is a conversation tie-in with Exchange. There is files, which is document library that's tied in. There's a shared OneNote notebook, and there's a shared site, which is SharePoint. So I didn't have to do anything for this, it's just made, okay? If I click on sites, so I want to kind of show you the connections, and then when we get to teams, this is going to make a lot more sense. We clicked on that. We were in Planner in the marketing team. Now we're in SharePoint in the marketing team. Same group, 25 members. If I click on this, I can see the members. You see who the owners are. So this one was an administrator. This is just a team site that we've got here, okay? And as you scroll down, you can see that there's been some content in this team. And we see there's a document library here. I want to take note of the marketing team and these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like 5 different folders that are here under the marketing team. So can somebody take note of that? Just mentally take note. So when I ask you and say, how many were this later? Somebody's going to take note of that for me, okay? Now, if we come to what's considered the launch over the quick launch over here on the left, we're in SharePoint, and we know because we see SharePoint at the top. Remember when we were in OneDrive, we saw OneDrive there. When we were in Planner, we saw Planner there. So each app has its own landing page out in the portal. When we come down here, there's that conversation reference that we saw when we were in Planner, which is really going to take us to Outlook, so I'll show you that. We've got documents, notebook, which is going to be a shared OneNote, and then we see some of the things that are related to our SharePoint site. I'm going to click Edit and just show you that I can come up here and say, well, it's really important that people be sharing what's going on in our Planner board. So I want to promote our Planner board here. I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to save. And it takes a minute or two before that shows up. Now, while we're doing that, I'm going to navigate. I'm going to go here to the portal, and I'm going to go to his Outlook really quick. Now, we know that was called marketing team because I still see this showing. I'm in Outlook, so this is the Outlook landing page in the cloud. If I scroll down under groups, we have marketing team. So that conversations that we saw there, it's from right here. So this is the exchange it's basically part of that group. So what does this mean? Think about a day in the life in your world, in your role. If you have a shared job, let's say, and I'm just going to use one that everybody can relate to. We have customer service in a company, right? And there's different shifts of customer service. And there's different types of functionality in customer service. Instead of sending an email to Susie in customer service, what if I sent an email to customer service? Everybody who's a member of that group sees the email and can respond to the email instead of it going to Susie and Susie having to remember to forward it, follow up, do all those things. It can actually be kind of like a follow the sun model for that whole team, if that makes sense. So everybody can respond from here and everybody can see who's sent an email to this group called marketing team. So these are all groups. They may or may not be converted to a team when we get to teams. Any big questions there? Anything for you to add there, Sherry?
Nothing. I'm good.
Okay, and they're good. So if you have questions, please don't be afraid to ask. We love it. Hopefully it's making sense. You're starting to kind of see the pieces come together. What you haven't seen yet is how do we create one of these groups. I'll show you how to create a team in a minute, but first I want to show you how to create a group and how you can convert that to a team. So I can do it from any of those pieces. I could do it from Planner, I could do it from SharePoint, I can do it from Outlook. I'm going to come into groups, and if I scroll down, and I could be in my Outlook client as well and do the same thing. I'm going to create a new group, and this is called an Office 365 group. It was called a modern group for a while. I think Office 365 is what they've stuck with now, right, Sherry?
Yeah, and the thing to keep in mind is when you create a group, you're not creating a team, right? So the people
Right.
get that confusion. So we'll make sure we cover that later, what the differences between the two.
And actually, even just looking over here, new group, working together on a project or a shared goal, create a group to give your team space, conversation, shared files, scheduling events. All of those things can be consistent in a team. Most of those things can be consistent in a team. There's a couple little tie-ins that we're going to see here that you don't get out of the gate with a team.
Okay, and can I make one more point real quick? Yep. When you're creating a group, you're creating remember, you're creating a planner board, you're creating a SharePoint site, you're creating all these other things. And if you name your group, this is the coolest group you'll ever be a part of in your whole life, that's going to be your email, your web address, your planner board name. So I always encourage people, you can always change the name and make it pretty later, but when you're creating them, think vanity plates. Like, how would you put this on a license plate or something short? To ensure that it keeps everything else manageable. And your company may be wanting you to use what are called naming conventions. So let's say champions could be used in many different departments. Maybe you have a prefix like FIN and then an underscore and then champions. But again, you can make that pretty later. It just kind of, when you're creating it, make sure that it's something short and sweet.
Yeah, it actually, naming conventions was one of the main points that we want to talk about. So it's going to pop up in different areas that we're at. So high five in the air, Sherry, for bringing that up right there.
Yep.
I actually was talking with my husband earlier, and we were talking about names, and what I usually tell people that are learning Office 365, and really those that are kind of starting in on Teams, is that sometimes they're a little gun shy to start out because they don't know what to call it. They don't know that information that you just shared, or they're a little worried that maybe there is something like that. You need to know who your audience is for that group and that team, right? So who are your team members that are going to be? What is the intent of this? Is this for, I'm the HR director and I want all my direct reports to have one shared location we're going to communicate and do all these things? Or is this a command central and I want to take pieces in from across the different organization, and it's going to be a total cross-pollination. So I'm going to have different people from all over. Then what I name it needs to be consistent with what those people understand. And it should be succinct, as Sherry just explained. So if we do command central, that's probably going to work fine. If I abbreviated command, they might not understand what that is. In your organization or in that group, they may completely understand what an acronym is. So you need to know your audience. That's a reference that I would give you. And you typically want to say something about the description. So, this is an all up, I don't know, communication, collaboration.
The description makes it findable later. So you want to use, a pretty phrase to describe it, but use keywords in that phrase that people might search for it for, should you allow permission for them to be in there. Obviously, don't just put a bunch of keywords separated by commas.
Whatever.
That's just not helpful.
It's very hard to type when you're thinking live. I'm like, I don't know what I put. But yeah, it also helps explain the intent for people when they're looking, right? So, and I will be totally honest, many times, because if you're in a smaller, more agile company, you don't do this, but you should. It's best practices is that everybody has understanding of that and all those things Sherry just pointed. The other critical point is it says, do we want this to be private, only approved members can see what's inside, or public? So if this was a foodies group, which a lot of companies that we work with, they love to do that. And we travel all over the place. So that is a open community. Everybody share. If I'm going to Memphis, Tennessee, where should I stay? Where should I not stay? Where do I have to go for entertainment and great music and eating? That sort of thing, you can leave it open. You might want to have somebody moderating it, but you could leave it public. I would say the large majority of anything that you create between a group and a team should be private. So now here's one of the things that you don't see when you're creating a team. Members will receive all group conversations and events in their inboxes. They can stop following. To my understanding, Sherry, this has not been added. When you create a team, you don't see this little add-in, right?
Correct. And you're basically opting everybody in to have their inbox blown up when you first get started, any conversations will show up in their inbox, but I think that's a best practice to leave that selected so people know there's activity happening and they can turn it off for themselves later.
Right, and it said that you can stop following this group later if you want to. Okay, so now I can go and I'm going to add who, look at, that's funny. Oh, that's a client. That's kind of funny that we've got these other people in here. But who do I want to add to this? I want to add Molly for sure, right? And I want to add Karen Berg. So we've got a core group, and this is a lot of times how you want to start out is we know we have an idea of things that we need to track, but maybe this is just the managers trying to figure it out first before you make it a full group, something like that. So I'm going to add those three, and I'm going to make Molly right now an owner. And that's an important distinction. It's a best practice almost always. And if you're in an organization, you want to come up with governance standards. This is one of those areas you want to cover in addition to like naming conventions. But in our company, when we create an Office 365 group and or a team, there should be a minimum of 2 owners on every one of those. And the reason for that is people leave, somebody's unavailable, and there might be something somebody might want access to that group or that team. If you don't have another owner, it's kind of stuck and you have to wait for IT. So do you want to come up with some best practices like that? I'm going to say add. And now in our Outlook, under groups, we see Command Central and it gives you kind of a welcome. So I could do a new email here and we can have conversations going back and forth. So I'm going to close that just so we don't have so many tabs. Now, actually, this will be interesting. I'm back in marketing team and I am Ty still. And if Ty comes to the Planner Hub, and we're going to get out of some side of marketing team, and if I scroll down, and this is kind of hard to see because it's at the bottom. There we go. What did I just call that one? Is it showing yet? I don't think it's showing yet. Command Central, right? So I don't see it here yet, and it might take a little bit to propagate out, but soon when we're on Planner Hub and we're under recent plans, we go to all plans, we'll see that show up.
Yeah, keep in mind that provisioning right now, these servers are really overloaded. I added a new user to our tenant the other day, and it took 6 hours for that to show up.
Which is not normal.
It's not normal. And so these tools are being very, very overworked right now. So we need to give a little bit of grace and patience, which I'm not great about. I'm like, where's my user? So,
right.
Yeah.
So it will show here. And so if somebody reminds you, we can come back and check on it in a little bit. Let's see if it's showing up in SharePoint. And the reason I want to show you this is, remember, we're in the standalone apps right now. How are they all working together? So we created that in Outlook. We went to Planner. It will show up. Now we're in SharePoint. If I click on SharePoint to take me to that landing page, I'm going to come here, and we called it Command. And hopefully it's propagated out here and we can find it in SharePoint. Here it is. Here's the SharePoint site for this. When we click on it, we should see connections. There's the conversations, which is going to be the Outlook we looked at. Now documents is not, there's nothing here. So I want you to take note of this as well. So marketing team, we had however many folders I had somebody remember. And now we're in Command Central, brand new group, not yet a Microsoft team. There's no folders showing here in documents, okay? So now I want to try and piece these together for you. So I'm going to go first show you Ty. Ty has Teams open in the browser. Here's Ty. And if you're brand new to Teams, I'll give you a layout in a second. I just want to highlight what we see here really quick. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 6 teams that Ty currently is seeing in his Teams environment. So he's a member of these teams. Marketing team, and so I don't know who took note of how many folders there were. Can somebody put that in the chat really quick? How many folders did we see when we were in SharePoint on the marketing team? Is this right, Sherry? 4, 5. Let's see.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's rows or little, they're called channels. So we have the marketing team, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 channels with names. They're all named. These are like work streams or functionality of what's happening. The general channel, when a team is created, is always created by default. So you will always have general. These other ones are additional ones that are added. What I'm going to try and tie together for you here is, if I go on general and we come inside, we see general here. We'll talk about posts in a little bit, but I'm going to look at files. If we go to files, we're going to see that we get prompted. It's kind of slow. I got to be patient. We have no files in here right now, which we could create one really quick, right? We could do the same thing. Actually, I'm just going to start one and just not really do much with it. I'm just going to name it and go check it out. Okay. We now have a Word file. We're inside, encapsulated inside Teams. We've got this file. We're not going to put any content in it. We're just going to name it. I'm going to close it. And we're going to see the file show here. Okay. If I come up and look at this menu, you see where it says open in SharePoint. So if I say open in SharePoint, it's going to take us to the general area for our marketing team in SharePoint. It opens in a browser window. And in fact, there's that file we're looking at. And if you look up, if you're familiar with document libraries, this is the document library. This is one of the folders in there. So we're in the general folder, which was the general channel. If I click on documents, do you remember when I said, somebody remember these? I think except for email attachments is the only one that's additional, and this is from something else. That's interesting, Sherry. It says 5 minutes ago. But, oh, you know why? I think because I did an email in there. But these right here. So when you're in a document, we have a document folder, awards, campaigns, events, general products. Let me go into marketing team, general awards, campaigns, events, products. Are you all getting that correlation? When you're in a team, and that team by default was a group, has the group connection underneath, like we created with the other one. Every time you create a channel and you're working on your files inside a team, in SharePoint, it creates, oops, sorry, let's close this guy. It creates folders in that document library for those. So this is Command Central we are in here, remember? This is a different one. I clicked on the wrong one, not to confuse you. But okay, so I'm gonna bring this back home and I'm gonna show you now Command Center, or Command Central that we have. So we looked at marketing team, which is one group that was already there. We didn't do anything with it. We just added some content, I think. Command Central, Ty created this as an Office 365 group. He doesn't have any folder showing in documents, but we do see we've got conversations and notebook and some of those connections. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna convert this to a team. So I'm actually we can do it from Ty's perspective or from Molly's perspective because they are both owners. He made Molly an owner, but Ty's back in his Teams in the cloud. Right down here in the very bottom left, can you guys see that? It's like my area is kind of covering it up, but at the very bottom it says create or join a team. I'm going to click on this and it opens up, how do you want to create or join a team? And this is actually a stopping point too for a point that came up yesterday. You may see, like if we had made that foodies group or other open teams or groups that had been made, you'll see those here where you can join them. Private groups, you may be able to search for and then request to be added in. But if you're going to create one, you're always going to start here with the create. Or have you ever done the create with a code, Sherry?
I have not, but that's another level of sharing so that if you have a private group and you don't want it to be discoverable even to people so that they can request to join the team that's like top secret, you'd say here you'd have to join the team and here's your code.
It's like spies.
Yeah, like dun dun dun.
Okay, so everybody's with me that we created a group called Command Central. We don't see it here as a team. So we're going to now convert it from a group that we know has that Outlook connector, and it has SharePoint, and it has Planner, and it has OneNote, it has all those things already connected. We're going to say create a team. I don't want to build the team from scratch. I want to create from an existing Office 365 group or team, and I want to choose it as an Office 365 group. So how we created it as a group from Outlook, that's what this is talking about. It's an O365 group. And you'll notice the only one that shows up is the one that Ty made. And it's got the lock telling you that it's private. It's not an open public for anybody in the organization. So we're going to go ahead and select it and say create. And you saw it show up back here in the upper left. And now this is the one thing I will say, there's something squirrely going on. This is a demo tenant and I noticed it already. So I want to tell you what normally will happen, but it's acting weird in here. We know that we added 3 people to this. Remember, I added Molly, Karen, and Jeff, and it's still only showing 1 member. So there's something weird going on there. And when you go to the team, I bet you when we go up here and we look at the team, we're only going to see him. Oh no,
Oh,
weird. So it's actually the underbelly just did an update. So I'm not crazy. I did do this. But the SharePoint and Planner is just taking a little bit longer to propagate. But I don't have to redo this. I can always add more people at any time, but look at the distinct groups. So the 2 owners, and now I could have 15 people under here as members and guests if we wanted to. One side note, when it says guests, that's talking about people, if it's allowed in your organization and enabled, you can invite people externally from different domains or different email addresses to join your team so that they can work. They have different rights. They can do a lot of what you would need to do as far as collaborating, but they can't do everything that an internal person could do as a member. Okay, so now we're inside Teams. He's in the browser, and I'm going to move from Ty's perspective. I'm going to move that team all the way to the top. So you'll notice, remember I said, you always start out within Teams, the one channel called General, right? But we haven't added any new channels. So let's start with the ellipses, which is our #1 friend when we're in Office 365 and Teams anymore. And we want to create a new channel. So the purpose of this is we want to have up-to-date dashboards being shared across the different parts of our organization, right? We want to have up-to-date data. Go ahead, Sherry.
So before we get into too deep into the channels, just want to make a quick clarification. Office 365 groups are the foundation of Microsoft Teams. When you create a team, it creates a group below it as well. So when she said the underbelly, it created the group underneath the team as well. When you create a group and then you add the teams layer to it, we call that being teamified. So your group got teamified, and all it does is add additional functionality, the availability to create channels. So you have sub audiences, which she's going to share with you, and then all the tabs and bringing in other tools, because otherwise an Office 365 group just has that. It has the conversations, the files, the planner board, the notebook, the SharePoint site behind it, all those little pieces that were in the graphic that we shared with you from Matt Wade. And then now she's adding additional functionality to that workspace for that group of people by teamifying it and adding another layer to it. So if that helps.
Yes. And I think I forget this because we've been around forever with this stuff. So we've seen the evolution of it. But that group was all we had for a long while. And I thought the group was amazing. The capabilities. So good question, Todd. I will answer that in 1 second. I see. So teams are within groups. So we're going to answer that. Let me get this point out, and then I think it's actually going to fall in alignment with that. When the group is made, those connections are there, right? All those things Sherry just talked about. So the SharePoint, the OneNote, the Planner, the Outlook. Outlook for me is the distinction that I make. If I want this group of people that need to have all that capability together, do I want them to have basically this distribution list that is shared so that other people can email them and they can see that, which is that conversations piece? So externally, outside of what they're working on, do we want other people who are not a member of this to be able to email them all and them all have this vision? That's kind of one way that I might make the distinction, which could include people external to your organization. If you don't need that, you can still come. That's one of the beauties of Teams that we're going to get to, is all sorts of communication can happen inside all of these channels with the members of the team. But if you need the additional communication part, that's why I start with the group a lot of the time. So let me add a channel. Now, I don't see his question up again, but ask me what Todd's question just was, Sherry.
He said, so teams are within groups. Actually, it's the opposite. The group is the foundation of a team. And then you should be able to see those you'll see the teams in Outlook, you'll see them as a distribution group, you'll see them as an email address that you're looking for. But when you create the group, it does not create a team. When you create a team, it does create a group.
Yes, just doesn't have every single piece of it connected.
Right.
That's the distinction.
Right.
It has all but the Outlook little piece.
Right.
Does that help everybody? I hope. Now, when you're going to name a channel, so let's have the conversation really quick about the naming convention. I mean, Sherry brought it up earlier. I think we were in SharePoint. I'm forgetting now. But when you're naming a team, and I think I brought it up talking about the audience. Who is going to be? Is it going to be your team, or is it across the organization? Is it you can have guest people on? Like, know your audience before you name this. It does help to kind of architect it and draw it out as well. But so if I call this data, that's probably okay, it's not great. Dashboard might be better, whatever. So you want to discuss what it is that you're doing on the team and on the channels. And the channels can be how this team and the different members of the team are going to get work done. So what are the focus areas? What are the work streams? So somebody who's going to work on data, and then we might have somebody who's going to work on communications, all are members of the same team, but are focusing in completely different areas. That's the way you can kind of think about it. I'm going to name this, and I want to highlight, I would normally put a description, but typically when you choose the privacy, you're almost always going to say this is accessible for everybody on the new team. Private, this is going to create this channel and make it private. I know Sherry's behind the scenes like growling right now because there's some underbelly stuff that's maybe not awesome or perfect, but this is a much wanted capability in Teams that the Microsoft user voice listened to and they added it in. So I want to make the distinction really quick. Typically, it's going to be standard. So as soon as I load this, anybody who's a member of the team can see that channel. If I say I want it to be private, only the people that I say who are members of the team will be able to even see that channel show up, which means this is actually can be very helpful. If I'm a manager and I've got cross-pollination and I've got maybe different units working under me, I might want my direct reports of those different units that are all members of this team on one channel, but I don't want their direct reports to see what I'm writing about and that we're working on and that we're budgeting. So a private channel might make sense in a team that way, so I don't have to create a whole new team to do it or take it offline to a private chat. Okay, so I'm going to keep it as a standard and say add. We're going to see the channel show up.
And just another quick note on private channels, your organization may have that disabled or not released yet. So if you don't see it, it's a fairly new feature, and some organizations are still vetting those out. And so if you don't see it, that's why.
Yes. And depending on the tenant. So if you're in like, well, we have a lot of government clients and they're like at least 6 months behind, plus it's depending on which cloud they're in, they may never see it, right? So there's differences in that as well. We're on just the normal commercial tenant. So right now, Command Central, we've got 3 channels. General is typically used for if there's something I need to share with everybody, everybody should see it. I want to get everybody kind of going, or I want to maybe communicate how we're going to use the team, how the other channels should be used. General channel is a good place to put all that information. The communications channel, the data channel, there's nothing unique about it. Anybody who's a member can go to them. But I want to show you, if I go, literally just added communications. So I want to show you consistency here really quick, and then we're going to go look at the files. So when we create the team, general's made, I made 2 new channels. It doesn't matter which channel I go to. If you look towards the inside at the right, every one of those has posts, files, wiki, and then a plus. I cannot do anything on any of those with posts or files. I can remove wiki if I so choose. And I can customize an ad, which is the beautiful part of what I want to show you guys today. We can bring in some of those other apps that we were looking at. So before I do that, I'm going to go to communications, which was the last channel that I added. I'm going to click on the files, and we didn't add any files here, but I want to show you that underbelly connection with the group. I'm going to go open in SharePoint. This is what we did from that marketing team. We're in the exact same thing. We're inside Command Center. We see private group. We can go home. And we have a SharePoint site, a team site. And you'll see now it shows documents is here. We've got 3 of them. I can click on documents on the left panel, which is really where we came into. And so our document library for our Command Central team, we've got a general, a data, and a communications. So every time in a team that a channel is made, it inherently creates a folder, a nested folder inside the document library for the team. And the beautiful part that I like to share with people is for those of you who are new to this, or those of you who have used SharePoint and maybe you used like 2007 version of SharePoint or earlier, didn't have the best experience. If you tell them the files are in SharePoint, sometimes you'll get kind of an ugly resistance to that if they've had bad experience in the past. And it was usually based on how it was architected. If you tell them and get them comfortable with using teams and channels, and they understand that they can just create files in here, they can upload files, they can upload folders, they can do all of this stuff, and they can collaborate and work together in here, they don't even necessarily even need to know that it's in SharePoint because they can live inside Teams and be working on those files together. Okay, any big questions on that? I'm going to click on this little, it's being really slow. Oh, here we go. It finally did come up. So if you can see at the bottom of my screen, I'm inside the data channel. And now we're going to talk about ways to communicate in a channel and how this is kind of really can be monumental and change how you work. So if you see at the bottom and you're just getting started, maybe I want to share a file here in data. I have where I can just say, hey guys, let's get working or whatever, right? And so we can have a chat inside the team. And people can write back and forth and see this. And there's some social kind of integration here, so we can like and do some emojis and do some other fun things with this. And we can have a back and forth. And this is anybody who's a member of the team has visibility into anything that's seen, shared, worked on, any of that that's inside any of the channels on the team, unless it's a private channel. If we come down to the bottom, I can actually do a formalized, make it look a little fancier. Here's an announcement, special information you need to know, right? So you can make this actually, you can insert some pictures and dress it up and give it some flair, and marketing people love this part. We can add some, you can actually embed some code snippet in here, do some quotes, attachments, you get the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and add this, and you can start to see that they notify you differently depending on what you do. So I did a thing where I marked it as important. If I'm the leader of this group, I want everybody to see that, you know, something's happening with COVID-19. It's going to affect us. We need everybody to be on the call in 10 minutes or something like that. Okay, now.
So Leanne, I have a question. So, so they're asking, why would you use these instead of using email? What's the benefit of using the channel conversations instead of email?
Okay, so I can give you my personal feeling on it, but my personal feeling comes from a decade of working with other clients and knowing that everybody is feeling like underwater from working in email. You can't have control over what people are sharing with you or not sharing with you in an email the same way. That's one thing to think about. When we talk about working in a team with certain people and on channels with even more specific, like somebody has specificity to be working on communications versus working in data, right? I got my technologists working on data. I got my marketing people working on communications. They can see each other. They can see the content, but how they're working and the messages about it. Why do I need to bug my marketing people about data information? Why do I need to remember who to include on an email or to include on a reply that's in an email, or important information has been shared on an email? If it's here and it's being shared in the team, it is available and visible for everybody. So, and I don't know the stat, Sherry, I wish I had looked this up before, but what's the stat with the reduction in email when you get people adopted into teams using it?
It's about 40% of your email box will go away. If people start actively using Teams. So the other question I have is, how long does this stay? How long is the messages, do they stay in the chat area, in the conversations?
Oh, I don't actually know what it is by default. Do you? I'm sure, I mean, it's persistent chat. It's a long time, unless your company has, the administrators have changed it, but I don't know what it is by default. We could follow up on that, but it's a long while.
It's most important to know that it's there and it's searchable. So if you have somebody new that comes into the group, into the team or into the channel, they see the history, where if you've had these conversations in email, that person is not privy to any of that historical interaction, you know, and it's all searchable, which is pretty cool.
Right. Here's another way of just sharing that. What you might use on here is Ty did a special at mention of Molly, giving her like a kudo, basically. He did a praise. Everybody on the team will see this, right? Now, I'm in Ty's view of Teams in the browser. I'm going to go to Molly. We haven't been with Molly for a long while. And Molly is actually in the desktop app. And how do we know that Molly's in the desktop app? You can't necessarily see the top. You might see the recording or whatever, but honestly, you don't see a waffle. There's no waffle in the upper left. There's a back and a forward. And then we've got our activity and teams and things going down the side. Now, if I look on the inside, the team that Molly's currently working on is communications from a champions team, okay? I'm going to minimize as Molly, minimize that champions team. Here's that marketing team that they were working on together, okay? And at the very bottom, there's Command Central, which is the brand new team that got converted by Ty, that she was made an owner of. What do you notice when you look at that Command Central? If I'm Molly and it's the first time I'm seeing it, what are your eyes going to be brought to? This is what's beautiful. Oh, thanks. So Kevin said, by default, Teams chat channel and files data are retained forever. Is that a question or a statement? He may have looked it up.
A statement, and he provided a link to the documentation that that you can refer to, which is helpful. Thank you, Kevin. That's awesome.
Thank you. So
leave it to the IT guy.
I love it. I know. So here's the thing. I did a praise, or Ty did a praise of Molly. It notifies her in so many ways that are critical. And she's actually getting multiple notifications on the same thing. So we get activity here, which we can click on and we can see. I don't click on it yet until I've highlighted these, but activity is a way for you to kind of delineate between the types of activity that she should see. Teams tells you it's something specific from a team and or a channel, or it has to be from a channel, right? In the team, since we're on it, if we had this collapsed and we haven't looked at that yet, that might be how we see it. Okay, you can see that she's got other exclamation points. This one also has an exclamation point, but look at how big it is compared to these. Okay, also notice that it's bold, and then of course we have the red one there. So, and the channel it's coming from is bold. As soon as I click on this, those go away. See, activity returned to 2, not 3, and Teams is reduced. Now when you come into the body of the post, that's the important that she hadn't seen. That's really, so we don't want to miss that message from our CEO or whoever it came from. And an app mention is a different notification than this, which is why before I clicked it, we had both of those. So now she can see that her app mentions are here. So let me highlight an activity feed really quick. I want to be aware of our time because we still got some fancy stuff to do, but you can see in the activity, Ty mentioned you, Ty added you to Command Central, Ty mentioned you in this way, Ty added you to this. So in her feed, she can go to her feed or her specific activity that she's done. And what did you post? And this is helpful, trust me, because I forget. I thought I wrote about that, or I thought I did something and you can't remember. That's a quick way to get back to your own. And then of course you can click the filter and you can say, what am I looking for? And you can find it. Okay. I want to get back into this team and I want to show you a couple other things. These are some of my favorite things about using Teams. So Molly is inside here now and she's going to say can you guys see the bottom of that screen? Hopefully my little panel is low.
We can see it, yep.
You can, okay, thank you. So instead of writing Ty, which we could do, but we're gonna do and the channel that we're on is data, and I'm gonna do data right now just so you can see it. Start to type data and it tells you, oh, we recognize data as a channel from where you're at. So yep, that's the one we want. At data, can you all help me get the dashboard up or something that you're working on, right? Instead of sending an email to a bunch of people, if everybody's in Teams, they're all gonna get this notification. If they're following, basically showing this channel, because we can hide it. If it's hidden, you won't get the notification alert in the activity, but if it's showing, you will. Even if you have it hidden, you can still navigate to it and see it. So let me minimize and go back to Ty. Ty has activity and chat, and he's already on the data channel, but do you see how it says data here? And you can see that it's a channel. This came from Molly, and that notification looks different. The channel notification is actually kind of like Sherry's. It looks like a file cabinet, right? More of like, how are we organizing this? So think about that, using those instead of using them in email. Molly has to do one thing in one post. Everybody who's part of that sees it and gets alerted. Now there's one more that I'm gonna show you guys. This is literally my favorite thing, and it's pretty new. So at the top of the team, on the ellipsis, we're gonna come in and we're gonna say manage tags. Now I gotta think about what tags to use. So let's see. So let's say, remember this Command Central is cross-pollination. And so I've got different functions, like different groups of people working on different things. I got database people working on one thing. I got marketing people working on one thing, but maybe it's sliced a completely different way in how they're working together, right? So maybe we've got our project A team, and that is Molly and Karen, okay? And maybe I will have another tag that is project B. So you see what I mean? So you've got a database person, you got a marketing person, you got all of your different people working on that project that you want to see. This is a way that you could think about using a tag. I don't remember who else I added in my team. Jeff?
Jeff.
Okay,
Yep.
that'll work. So Jeff's lonely dude all by himself. You can see the tags, and if I'm part of a tag, which I didn't make, I could have added Ty here and I would have seen it. When the tags are used, you're going to see this is kind of amazing. So in fact, I can be on any channel in the team. So I'm going to go to communications and I'm going to go at project A. What's the status? I don't have to remember who's on that team. I just have to remember if I'm owning that, every time members of the team change, I change the tag and who's associated with it, right? But I don't have to remember, maybe at the handoff or at the end of a release or whatever it is, I just send the tag out. Now, if I go back to Molly, Molly has a communication. It's a big red one. She's got the at mention in team. She's got the activity here. When she goes to it, she's going to see project A, and she can see that her and Karen are both members of this project A team, which is also an at mention. So do you guys getting a sense for how to communicate in here in the team specifically? I always think of these as kind of, they're already threaded conversations because you're focused on whatever that functionality is. So I'm in communications. This is where I spend all my time. When you communicate with me in here, it's about the communications. You don't have to send me an email follow-up. You don't have to send me an email with the files we need to use here. You just put the files in here and we can all work on them, collaborate on them. And I know Kevin's on this call, and one of the features that he worked with me on like last week and he fell in love with it is as soon as you put a file in here, actually I think I can upload. Oops, sorry, going crazy. I can upload from, oh, this is my local. Darn it. You could upload from your OneDrive, but this is from my personal machine. I don't know what I've got out here, but let's say that I had this Word document, help, and we wanted to work on this together. It's going to open up in the Word online version inside, encapsulated inside Teams, and it's kind of small, but one more way to communicate in here with your teams is you have a conversation around the file while you're working on the file. And I'm going to do at Ty, not Ty E, Ty C. Can you start us or something like that? Whatever you're working on. Okay, so she's typing and maybe she's working in here, and we'll see Ty's image show up when he goes in here. So let me flip to Ty. Ty gets a notification. Now I see as Ty in communications, Molly Clark, Ty Carlson, here's the at mention to him. Can you get us started? And he can go, sure, he can click in here, or he can go, not right now. He's responding to her outside. She's inside the team. I'm back in her and see how she sees this. So when he's not adding comments. Comments is different. He can add comments around the file. This is having a conversation tied specifically to that file, which typically would be an email in an organization. We don't have to do email. And she can close out. She can close out of the whole thing. That file is here, but the information, the conversations around it is out here. So imagine 12 people talking about what needs to happen with the file, not how to change the file. Does that make sense? Or maybe it is how to change the file, and I think we need to get information from blah, blah, blah. At mentioning and doing all that, it's all captured here. So we would just see a bunch that would say 6 people have replied, you expand it, and you see the whole conversation history around that file. It is way cool. It's like one of my favorite things. So I know we're getting close. So let me show you how to customize some of these tabs, and then I want to highlight a couple chat things really quick too. So one of the most powerful things, the reason I spent all that time at the beginning going through Office 365 and highlighting the individual apps is so you understood how Teams can be powerful. This is missed a lot. Sherry and I both agree this, that yep, you can go into Teams, but if you're just doing Teams and all you're knowing is to do a one-on-one chat or to do the post and that's it, you're really missing the power. So let's say we want to bring in Planner, or we want to bring in Power BI, or we want to bring in Stream, which are videos you already have made. Any of these things, these are all Microsoft or usually inherit, most people are going to have these. As you scroll down, there's so many third-party tools. I don't even know what most of these are. You may or may not see all of these, right? Your company may have its own in here. So Microsoft doesn't care. It's happy to let you use whatever you want. So Jira Cloud's one that a lot of my clients use, that they already are, leveraged in Jira. They want to be able to bring that in. They can do that. I'm just going to create a new planner board and show you when we come in. Planner's where we started. I can come in, and I don't know that we started anything in the Command Central. I think we worked on the marketing one. Maybe we did. Let's see. I can go to use an existing plan. And this tells me right here, I have not yet created an existing plan. If I come in and say I want to create a new plan, and this is our COM, I'm going to say our COM plan. I'm going to say COM Central plan because I got COM somewhere else, I think. So this is that using the same language gets difficult sometimes. You notice this has this post to channel about this tab. Everybody in the post is going to be notified that I just added this, and they can click on the link to it from there. Here's the planner board. Remember, we started out and we had some buckets in there and we had tasks. This is a brand new planner board that I can change this to anything I want to do. So I can say backlog, and I'm just doing something simple, real Kanban-y focused, the whip, and then if I had something else, I could do done or whatever, right? You might have tested, you might have different things in there, and we begin adding our tasks. COM plan or something like that. And I don't know anything about it yet. I just know it's due here. It's added. We can move it, we can do it. Now, if I go back into Office 365, or anybody who's a member of this team goes into Office 365, they're going to see it show up in Planner. Anybody who's a member of the team can simply navigate to Communications channel, click on COM Central Plan, and see it here. If I click back on Post, see how it's posted. So we can have a conversation about this just like we did about the file. So maybe I think the buckets need to be in another order. You know what I mean? Having some sort of conversation around what's happening there is really helpful. One more thing I like to, actually, no, I'm going to show you down here. Where did I turn that on at? I forget where I did this. I wanted to show you Power BI, but I forget which team I turned it on for. Oh, I think it was Champions, actually. So this is another team. So Molly is part of all of these teams, and she wants to share a Power BI dashboard. It had to be enabled inside Power BI to be available for this workspace or this team. So I already did that, but I'm going to come into Power BI, which is a awesome tool to be able to see. And I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this HR, which doesn't make sense on Communications or Cool Kids, but workspaces. Apps are internal things that your company has turned on for you and how you're using the data, but workspaces is in this location. So I have like my personal workspace or the teams. So I'm going to go to Champions, and here's the human resources one that I want to use. We're going to turn this on. Everybody who's a member of this team has rights to this because of how it's saved in that workspace back in Power BI. So two different examples of how you can customize your tabs. So you can have 8 teams, and every channel of all of those 8 teams will be completely different because of how you're working. Okay, where are we at? We're almost up. So let me show you a really quick chat and make a distinction in the files. I think this is a critical thing. Chat is very much, you can have one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many. By clicking on the little piece of paper with a pencil, it's kind of hard to see. You can click on it and then start to type in who you're looking for. Why doesn't it? Oh, I'm Molly. Hello, ding dong. Okay, Ty, well, you won't find yourself, is what that's showing me. Let's say I want to do Ty and Karen. You can see that Ty and Molly already have a conversation, so it shows. But if I want to add Karen to it, brand new conversation. Okay, and I'm just going to type a message down here and say, hey, y'all. I don't think I spelled y'all right. Is that right? I don't know. I'm not Southern. But hey, y'all, they can write back. And we can come in and we can rename this, and we can call this the fun group or the data group or whatever it is, so that we all see the difference between our chats. One more thing that I'll show you on this before we have to stop. I'm going to go back into the chat, which we get notification for. And you see how fun group is all bold, and that task marketing com is bold. These are things that Ty needed to see, or something's been changed or added. He's going to write something and say, sure. Now he wants to add somebody else to this group. We can have video calls, regular calls, and we can add people to this group. and he's going to add somebody, and he's going to add, let's say Dan, or Jeff, actually. Jeff is somebody else we're working with. And you'll notice he gets a prompt here. Once you have 3 or more people, you'll get a prompt that asks you about the persistence and what you want people to come into the chat seeing. So you don't see it with less than that, but as soon as you have 3 or more, you'll get prompted to say, do you want Jeff, who's going to be added to this, to see all of the history, no history, or how long, how many days of history? So if I say no history, he comes in empty. If I say include all, he comes in and he's got all that information. And he's now a member of our fun group.
So Serena has a question for us. She says, for trainings or video calls or meetings, do you guys recommend Microsoft Teams or Zoom? We have been having this conversation all week because we want to promote the Microsoft products, but presenting Teams or doing training for Teams while you're in Teams is a whole other challenge, and it gets quite confusing. There's also, we kind of talked about this at the beginning, they don't have the raise the hand feature. We can't mute everyone. There's just certain things that we wanted to be able to control if the group got fairly large that is not yet available in Teams. They do have the Teams live events, but there's some setup that requires. And so I don't know, that's kind of what I think we came up with, don't you think, Leanne? Was there anything else?
Yeah, so the main reason that I can show all the things I just showed, but if I would have went in and tried to show you how to conduct a meeting in Teams, but I was already showing my Teams environment to you, that's where it doesn't work. Right. The other distinction that I forgot to highlight really quick is, like, Ty is here in the browser. He doesn't even have a meeting option down here, which is interesting. I don't think I ever noticed that before. If I go back to Molly and her client.
You have to schedule a meeting using the calendar. It doesn't have the live, like, meet now option.
Because he's in the browser?
Yeah.
So down here she does. So you have more functionality in the client, which is usually true with Excel or Outlook or anything else, but it's something to keep in mind. You want to use the desktop version for the optimal experience. So cloud, the web-based works great, but you can't share your screen. You can't start a meeting the same way that she can. So scheduling a meeting, I didn't even talk about the calendar here. Your calendar is always present. If you had created that planner board, you can have a planner calendar that's brought in or a SharePoint calendar that's brought in that you would customize and bring into one of your channels. That's awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah, Serena made the point because I thought the raise the hand feature was supposed to be new for Teams. It is, but we're also subject to when it hits your tenant.
Right.
And so there's like 3 barriers to getting the new features. The first one is, what release circle are you on? The second one is, your IT department can decide, even if it's been rolled out, if it's released to your environment. And the third one is, if you're in different clouds, like the government cloud and the secure cloud, they don't, again, Leanne said it earlier, sometimes they're 6 months or more behind. So yeah, it's supposed to be there, but when you get it, it's a whole other story. Like when they announced Planner, I was like, open, open, open. I wanted it so bad. And it took like 4 months for it to actually show up in my tenant.
Yes.
So.
You know, funny story about that, not to keep you all on, but, you know, Sherry and I are always at Microsoft offices, which is really fun. But I was in the Alpharetta, which is outside of Atlanta office, oh my gosh, 3-4 years ago. And this administrative assistant, I was doing some sessions there, and she was in one of my sessions the day before. She came running into the room, and her face was white. She was panicked, and she goes, "What is this?" And she shows me her laptop, and she's like, "We're supposed to use this. We're supposed to give them feedback. I don't even know what this is." And it was the early version of Planner, and I was like, "It's a Kanban board!" And I got so excited, and like I'm just like thrilled by it. She was petrified by it. She didn't know what it was. But they eat their own dog food, which I really think is awesome. They try everything out. They're the first guinea pigs. Then people like Sherry and I, who are on early adopter licenses, we're the next round of guinea pigs. And then it goes into those stages of what your organization and enterprise is set up for that Sherry was explaining. So, and even, I don't even think the raise a hand, I think it just literally came out for the Microsoft people. I just saw some Microsoft friends on LinkedIn pointing that it showed up in their Teams environment. So I don't know when we're going to see it. It's going to be some months. So thank you everybody for joining. I know we're over by a couple minutes. I hope this was helpful. And Sherry, I'm going to let you tidy it up and I'll be quiet.
videos that are a little more extensive in my YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out. It's, again, shortcutsherry.com. And Leanne's going to be doing, so we've been talking about, what do you want to do? We want to do some more videos for you guys as well. So feel free to look at those. Also have found out recently that a lot of the training companies like Pluralsight, as she alluded to, Pluralsight and LinkedIn Learning are offering free trainings. And a lot of our videos are in there, as well as the ones from our esteemed colleagues like Heather Severino. She's a OneNote MVP, and she does the OneNote videos. I've done the SharePoint videos and PowerPoint videos, things like that. So be sure to check those out in those free platforms while they're offering to you for free. And reach out to us. We'll have our contact information. You will receive one follow-up email. We will not spam you going forward. I don't like that done to me, and I was taught do unto others as you would do unto you. So once you get on our mailing list, you're not on some list somewhere, we promise. It was just for this event, but we definitely appreciate you coming and spending your time with us, and feel free to spread the word. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do. And we'd love to be in person with you, but this is the next best thing, right? I was going to highlight and say I actually haven't gotten on Pluralsight to see, but I did a stream series for clip training, and I did MFA, which is multi-factor authentication from an end user perspective. I think those are out there. If you don't know what MFA is, but your company's telling you you have to do this, basically multi forms of verifying that it's you should go check those out, because I did it less technical, more about how you might use it, and that might be helpful to everybody right now.
Yeah, the MFA is a blessing and a curse. It's like every time I log into something, I get tweets, send a text to my phone, and I'm like, really? It's like, do you not know who I am by now? But no, they know. Are you really, really Sherry? Are you really, really Sherry? So it's especially in secure environments, you just want to make sure that they want your password to be you, and not just a password so somebody can't hack it. That's the purpose of multi-factor authentication. And by having to respond to a text on your phone, it's saying, yep, I'm a real person and I'm not trying to get into somebody else's stuff. So
very good. Awesome, everybody. Thank you for the interaction and the questions. Let us know if there's something else that you are like intrigued to learn more about for us to cover, because we're happy to do that.
That's great. Yeah, and we'll stick around for questions if you have them. Let us know. We appreciate it. Okay. Thanks for joining us. I'll be stopping the recording now.